It was 3:18 a.m. local time, and the arid highlands of northern Somalia lay cloaked in darkness, the vast emptiness broken only by jagged mountain ridges and dry riverbeds etched into the earth like scars. To the naked eye, there was nothing remarkable about this barren region near the Golis Mountains. But buried deep beneath the rocks and sand, hidden from satellites by layers of camouflage netting and natural overhangs, was one of the most dangerous terror nerve centers ever discovered on the African continent. The United States had been watching it for months, and tonight, 5 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, the most advanced aircraft in the U.S. Air Force inventory, would strike first, delivering a blow so precise, so devastating, that the entire mountain would be leveled in an instant, changing the battlefield forever. The story of how this mission, Operation Silent Thunder, came to be is one of modern warfare's most complex intelligence hunts. It began with a whisper on intercepted communications, a series of coded messages exchanged between al-Shabaab commanders and shadowy foreign operatives suspected of ties to ISIS and al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. The chatter spoke of shipments, of a fortress beneath the stone, and of a plan to coordinate drone swarms and hypersonic missile attacks against U.S. Navy ships patrolling the Gulf of Aden. As those fragments were pieced together by analysts at U.S. Africa Command and the NSA, the outline of a terrifying plot emerged. Hidden beneath the Somali mountains was a hardened complex, a command and control center directing terrorist operations across East Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Western Indian Ocean. It wasn't just a cave, it was a bunker city, complete with drone assembly rooms, encrypted comms arrays, weapons stockpiles, and underground barracks housing over 100 militants and engineers. This complex, codenamed Site Viper by U.S. intelligence, was a marvel of insurgent engineering. Built with the assistance of rogue foreign advisors, it extended nearly 350 feet below the surface, with reinforced concrete chambers connected by tunnels bored through the mountain's base. The entrances were hidden behind natural rock formations and shielded by sliding steel blast doors scavenged from decommissioned cargo ships. Inside, generators powered by smuggled fuel provided electricity for drone production lines and satellite uplinks. The most chilling discovery was the weapons inventory. Satellite and drone surveillance identified heat signatures consistent with hypersonic missile fuel storage and saw evidence of advanced drone frames being assembled, drones capable of evading radar and overwhelming U.S. naval defenses. For months, the U.S. monitored Site Viper, using everything from high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft to low-Earth orbit satellites and maritime patrol drones. The goal was clear: confirm the threat, map the complex, and plan a strike that would eliminate the danger without risking American lives or triggering unnecessary regional escalation. A ground assault was ruled out immediately. The terrain was too hostile, and al-Shabaab fighters had filled the surrounding valleys with IEDs and booby traps. Even the most elite special operations forces would struggle to penetrate, let alone escape. A conventional airstrike wouldn't suffice either. The mountain's natural defenses, combined with the bunker's design, meant that standard munitions would do little more than chip at its surface. The only solution was a weapon designed for one purpose: to destroy what hides deep beneath the earth. Enter the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber and the GBU-72 Advanced Bunker Buster, a combination that represents the pinnacle of U.S. precision strike capability. 5 B-2 Spirits were selected for the mission, each assigned a specific impact point calculated to trigger a catastrophic internal collapse of Site Viper. These weren't random targets. They were identified through months of geological modeling, AI-assisted structural analysis, and constant real-time updates from spy satellites and drones. The plan was simple in theory, but required flawless execution. The bombers would launch from a secure base, fly halfway across the world under the cover of total stealth, and deliver their payload simultaneously, ensuring the bunker had no chance to respond, reinforce, or retaliate. The night of the strike, the B-2 Spirits rose silently from their forward deployment location, their radar-absorbing skin blending them into the night sky. No lights, no radio chatter, just the quiet, deadly purpose of aircraft designed to deliver destruction where it's least expected. Each bomber carried a single GBU-72 Earth Penetrator bomb, a 5,000-pound marvel of modern military engineering. With advanced guidance systems that integrated GPS, inertial navigation, and onboard AI terrain mapping, the GBU-72 was built to think for itself, adjusting its fuse timing and trajectory based on real-time penetration data as it bored through rock and steel. The nose of the bomb was forged from a proprietary hardened alloy, capable of surviving impact speeds over Mach 1 and punching through layers of reinforced concrete and natural stone that would stop any ordinary munition cold. As the B-2 Spirits approached the target area, they descended to optimal release altitude, their engines whisper quiet, their electronic signatures invisible to the crude radar systems used by al-Shabaab's lookouts. On the ground, the militants in Sight Viper had no idea death was minutes away. Inside the bunker, operators monitored their drone feeds, checked missile fuel levels, and adjusted their encrypted communications. Above them, in the blackness of the night, the B-2s opened their bomb bays and released their deadly cargo. At precisely 3:18 a.m., the 5 GBU-72 bombs began their descent. Unlike the bombs of old, they didn't tumble or scream through the air. They flew, guided and corrected by their fins, reading the terrain below with AI precision. Each bomb targeted a specific point designed to maximize internal collapse: the drone workshop, the command center, the fuel depot, the main barracks, and the central power station. The weapons struck the mountain surface in near-perfect unison, vanishing into the stone with barely a sound. No fireball, no shockwave, just the quiet of steel piercing earth at hypersonic velocity. Seconds ticked by. Then came the destruction. The bombs detonated deep inside the mountain, triggering shockwaves that rippled through the internal structure. The chambers cracked. The support columns failed. The fuel stores ignited, sending secondary explosions tearing through the complex. The mountain didn't just shake, it buckled. The entire ridgeline slumped as caverns collapsed, tunnels caved in, and the once invisible fortress was erased from existence. From space, satellites recorded the surface deformation, a visible scar where Sight Viper had been. From above, the B-2 Spirits turned for home, their mission complete, their presence never detected. In the minutes that followed, U.S. Navy warships stationed in the Gulf of Aden and the Arabian Sea monitored for any sign of counterattack. There was none. The radio signals from Sight Viper went dark. Thermal scans showed no heat signatures, no power emissions, no movement. The most dangerous terror command post in East Africa had ceased to exist in less time than it takes to brew a cup of coffee. No boots on the ground, no warning, no survivors. What made Operation Silent Thunder so remarkable wasn't just the precision or the technological mastery. It was the message. In a world where adversaries build deeper, hide better, and rely on terrain for protection, the United States demonstrated that no hiding place is beyond reach. The combination of stealth, advanced munitions, and real-time intelligence fused into a strike so clean, so final, that it redefined what modern power projection looks like. For the B-2 Spirit crews, the mission was the culmination of months of preparation, simulations, and silent hours in the cockpit, trusting their aircraft and their weapons to do what was needed. For the analysts and planners at AFRICOM, it was validation of a strategy built on precision and patience. For America's allies, it was a reassurance that U.S. power remains not just potent, but surgical. And for America's adversaries, the shadowy networks that plot in caves, tunnels, and hidden bunkers, it was a warning as clear as any ever delivered. No mountain is too high, no bunker too deep, no enemy beyond reach. In the aftermath, the world reacted with a mix of awe, relief, and caution. Regional powers praised the elimination of a shared threat, but worried about escalation. Media outlets ran 24-hour coverage, speculating on how the strike had been planned, what new technologies had been revealed, and what it meant for the future of counterterrorism. Defense analysts dissected satellite images showing the collapsed mountain, the precision of the impact points, the minimal environmental damage compared to older carpet bombing tactics. The operation became a case study overnight, taught in military academies as the new gold standard for deep strike operations. But beyond the headlines and the analysis, what remained was the silence, the absence of further attacks, the quiet reassurance that the U.S. military can and will act when its interests and the safety of its allies are threatened. The 5 B-2 spirits that struck first in the Somali night didn't just destroy a mountain. They destroyed an illusion, the belief that distance and depth could protect those who seek to harm the innocent. And in doing so, they reshaped the battlefield of the 21st century. In the hours following Operation Silent Thunder, the world slowly began to grasp the magnitude of what had occurred. From Washington to Mogadishu, military analysts, diplomats, and intelligence chiefs pored over preliminary reports, satellite photos, and intercepted chatter. The images were striking. Where once the Golis mountain ridge had jutted sharply against the sky, there now lay a jagged depression, smoke curling lazily from the scarred earth. The sheer precision of the operation defied belief. Entire structures that had existed beneath hundreds of feet of rock were simply gone, vaporized without so much as a visible surface explosion. No civilian settlements had been disturbed, no nearby infrastructure damaged. It was, as one senior British defense official remarked privately, a surgical removal of a tumor. Nothing more, nothing less. Inside U.S. command centers from the Pentagon to Djibouti's Camp Lemonnier, the mood was one of quiet satisfaction mixed with vigilance. Success on this scale bred its own dangers. The planners knew that while Site Viper had been destroyed, its architects might still be out there. Across secure communication lines, teams of CIA field officers and JSOC operatives in East Africa began following the next trail. Financiers in Mogadishu, foreign engineers in Eritrea, arms smugglers along the Yemeni coast. Operation Silent Thunder hadn't been just a strike. It was the first move in a wider campaign to dismantle an entire shadow network that had believed itself untouchable. Meanwhile, the Somali government, caught off guard by the sudden spectacle of U.S. military power unleashed within its borders, scrambled to manage both domestic and diplomatic fallout. Officially, Mogadishu offered no comment. Privately, Somali security chiefs expressed relief. The elimination of Site Viper removed a growing threat that had increasingly undermined their fragile grip on power in the north. But the strike also highlighted uncomfortable truths. That their own forces had no visibility on Site Viper's construction, no means to act against it, and no choice but to rely on U.S. intervention when the danger became too great. For Al-Shabaab, the consequences were immediate and devastating. Inside encrypted channels on dark web forums, commanders issued frantic messages, trying to piece together what had happened. Their most secure fortress, the heart of a plan to project power beyond Somalia, to strike at the U.S. Navy, to gain leverage on the global stage, had been obliterated in under 5 minutes. Survivors, if any existed, were silent. Safe houses across East Africa went dark as operatives fled or went into hiding, fearing further strikes. Funding streams dried up overnight as backers in foreign capitals realized the vulnerability of their investments. And rival factions within Al-Shabaab began to whisper of betrayal. Who had leaked Site Viper's location? Was there a spy in their ranks? Paranoia spread faster than any American missile. What few realized in those first hours was just how much the strike on Site Viper revealed about the evolving nature of American military power. The B-2 Spirit bombers involved in the mission had done more than drop bombs. They had mapped and updated the battle space in real time, their onboard sensors feeding petabytes of data to AI-assisted fusion centers thousands of miles away. Every seismic tremor, Every heat signature, every electromagnetic pulse had been logged and analyzed, creating the most detailed three-dimensional model of an underground strike site ever assembled. The GBU-72 bombs themselves had contributed to this new intelligence picture, transmitting penetration telemetry and impact data milliseconds before detonation. The result? A blueprint not just for what was destroyed, but for how future strikes could be made even more precise. This was warfare no longer defined solely by the brute force of tonnage or the reach of fighter squadrons. It was a new doctrine of integrated lethality, where cyber operations, artificial intelligence, stealth technology, and kinetic strikes fused into a single, seamless instrument of national power. And its debut in Somalia sent shockwaves through militaries across the globe. Defense ministries in Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, and Pyongyang convened emergency meetings, poring over what little data they could gather. If the U.S. could erase a mountain bunker without warning, without loss, and without detection, what could they do to harden sites closer to home? Even within the U.S. defense community, the operation sparked intense debate. In closed-door briefings, senior planners outlined how Silent Thunder represented a proof of concept for missions long imagined but never attempted. Strikes deep into enemy territory against targets buried far beyond the reach of conventional weapons, executed without the need for forward bases or regional overflight permissions. For decades, massive carrier strike groups had been the primary symbol of U.S. power projection. Now, a handful of stealth bombers, invisible and unstoppable, had shown that even the most isolated, fortified adversary could be reached and eliminated in a single, silent night. For the men and women of the U.S. military, Silent Thunder was a vindication of years of investment, training, and quiet readiness. For America's enemies, it was a warning written in the very bones of the earth. No matter how deep you dig, no matter how well you hide, the reach of U.S. power is longer, its vision sharper, and its strike swifter than you ever imagined. And for the rest of the world, it was a glimpse of a new era. An era where mountains fall in silence, and the future of warfare is written not with mass, but with precision.